Let me tell you how I watched a group of HOA bureaucrats try to steal my family's 3,500-acre ranch and how I turned the tables and ended up owning their whole neighborhood before lunchtime. You ever wake up, stumble through your own front gate, and find your whole world being hauled away by strangers? That was my morning. I'm talking about men I'd never seen, shiny vests, trucks I didn't recognize, all of them tearing apart my life like it was just another construction site. My grandfather's feed wagon was hooked up to someone else's rig. My branding chute was halfway up on a trailer. A guy cursing at a fence panel like he'd never seen one. Everything, tools, equipment, history moving right out the door. And flapping on my gate, there it was, a foreclosure notice stamped in loud, official red. Sold. Gone. To an HOA. Not a mortgage company, not a bank, an HOA I'd never signed up for. I tell you, nothing will make you question your grip on reality like seeing that. I'd paid every tax bill, kept every receipt, filed every form. My ranch was paid off. No loans, no liens. I stood there, heart pounding, breath hanging in the cold Wyoming air, trying to make sense of a universe where my land could just vanish overnight. And then she showed up, all polished and grinning in a red wool coat. Marilyn Croft, president of the Cedar Hills HOA. Clipboard, perfect blonde hair, voice like someone who enjoys making her life harder. Flanked by her board members, she told me, not stealing, transferring ownership. They'd auctioned my land yesterday, so the property changed hands. Procedures were followed. Official, you know, except I'd never even heard of the auction. Never got a notice, never signed up for any HOA, never agreed to a thing. She smiled that thin little smile, tapping her clipboard. Boundary adjustments, she said, had made my ranch part of their HOA. Membership is automatic. Automatic. My grandfather bought that land in '54. I told her, straight up, you can't just auto-enroll a man's life's work into your little country club. But Marilyn just shrugged, told me to grab my personal items and leave before law enforcement arrived. I felt the sunrise behind me, the wind whistling, and not a lick of warmth in my bones. Here's the thing, though I am stubborn. My father used to say, you can always hear the truth in a person's voice. And Marilyn's voice? It was all tin and gloss. I looked her dead in the eye and asked, how do you sell land that never belonged to you? She just turned away, waving her crew on. That was when I knew this wasn't just a paperwork snafu. This was war, and I was going to fight it. I drove straight to the Cedar Hills Community Center, mud flying off my tires, boots echoing through the hall. Inside, the board was already meeting. Projector on, my ranch colored in bright blue like a kid's marker map, all neat lines and lies. Marilyn stood at the podium, and the room went cold when she saw me. I didn't wait for her speech. I asked them, right in front of everyone, how exactly my ranch ended up on their map. Turns out, they'd filed some boundary realignment at the county office mail notices to a P.O. box that had been dead for years. Not our fault you didn't keep your address current, Marilyn chirped. They made up fees, mailed them to a ghost, and foreclosed without once knocking on my door. That's their system. She said I joined the HOA automatically when my land got lumped in. I demanded the paperwork. They handed over a survey signed by Richard Klenia, guy who'd been dead for nearly a year before the document was dated. I said it flat. This signature is forged. Marilyn's mask slipped for a second, but she doubled down, claiming their legal team had it covered. Sheriff Bo showed up, looking tired. I told him a surveyor was dead before that signature ever happened. He said, that's something the county clerk will need to look into, which is lawman speak for you're on your own. So I walked out of there with a forged map under my arm, my mind racing. If they could fake one document, they could fake a dozen. And if they go this far to take my land, what else were they willing to do? That night, walking my fence line, I found the next piece of their plan, 3 sections of fence, sliced clean through with bolt cutters. Cattle tracks led off my property, wandering where they shouldn't. Sabotage. Someone wanted my herd on HOA land, so they could cry dangerous livestock and pile on more violations. I crouched by the cut wire, angry but focused. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. That's when a scrawny kid showed up, Wyatt Bloom, 16, scared, shivering. He admitted Marilyn paid him $50 to cut the fence at dusk, called it community service, said it would just scare me. He didn't know it would cost me the ranch. I told him he did the right thing by coming clean. I promised him, "You're not in trouble with me, son. But you may need to tell the truth if it comes to that." Marilyn had a whole scheme running. Forged signatures, bogus boundaries, fake fees, cut fences, and a trail of lies deep enough to bury anyone without the stomach for a fight. But I had something she didn't: evidence. Real evidence. The next morning, with the wind biting and a storm rolling in, another HOA enforcer rolled up. Clipboard, official car, blue windbreaker Jeremy from the Cedar Hills Enforcement Division. He handed me an eviction notice, said I had 10 days to leave. I took the papers, told him to tell Marilyn that further action was exactly what she was going to get. In those papers, buried deep, was a name I recognized: Clint Barrow, developer, consultant, beneficiary. The same Clint who'd made a mess out of a failed resort outside Casper, walked away from lawsuits without a scratch. Now he was here with Marilyn, trying to turn my land into luxury lakefront properties. The plot wasn't just about might, was about millions. That's when I remembered the old box in the barn, tucked behind blankets-me father's records. Deeds, maps, water rights, and, most importantly, a 1968 federal easement for Cottonwood Creek. That easement meant the land along the creek was federally protected. No HOA, no developer, not even the county could override it. I brought that easement straight to Rachel, my attorney, sharp, quick, tough as old boots. She took one look at the paperwork and said, "This isn't just protection, Elias. This is a weapon." I laid out everything: the forgery, the sabotage, the threats. She dug into records, pulled up tax audits, found proof the HOA hadn't paid county taxes in 3 years, no legal standing to foreclose on anything. She found the email chain between Marilyn and Clint. Fake boundaries, property grabs, payoffs. The judge who signed the foreclosures? On Clint's payroll. It wasn't just my ranch, he'd stolen 2 more in the valley already. Meanwhile, Wyatt's family was being threatened. Maintain association loyalty or lose your rental. Rachel called it what it was: criminal conspiracy, racketeering, federal fraud. By then, the storm had broken. News vans were parked outside the courthouse. The community center, where Marilyn once presided like a queen, was packed with residents now realizing what had been done in their name. In court, Marilyn's case unraveled piece by piece. The judge saw the fake signatures, the emails, the tax evasion. Rachel presented the easement. Wyatt stood up brave, shaking, and told the truth. The judge ruled, right there. The court acknowledges substantial evidence of fraud, forgery, and deliberate harassment. The HOA lost everything. The whole Cedar Hills development, every lot, was reclaimed at agricultural value, just $800 a parcel. State law, conservation law, federal law all working together. I signed the paperwork for the new Cottonwood Conservation District, flipping the power back where it belonged. And here's the twist: nobody got evicted. Instead, the subdivision became a conservation zone. Anyone who wanted to lease their home at agricultural rates could. The land would heal. The creek would be restored. The HOA's legacy gone, replaced by something better, something honest. As the dust settled, I stood on my porch, watching the sun dip behind the hills. My ranch was steady as ever. I'd learned justice doesn't always show up loud. Sometimes it walks in wearing boots, steady and patient. Sometimes it needs you to fight like hell for what's right. They tried to erase my legacy, but all they did was hand me the power to protect every other family they might have targeted. If you've ever stood your ground against someone trying to push you around, drop a yes in the comments. Let me know you're out there. And if you care about stories of justice, land, and standing tall, stick around. There's a lot more truth waiting out here on the wind.
Cảm ơn tất cả các bạn đã xem video.